ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing.
Maybe. Sometimes.
Tell me about this. I want to know more.
Oh, yeah. No.
Holy cow.
We've had a lot of fun.
So, Nicole, how's it going out there in the Great White North? Where is it you are exactly?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. And,
okay.
Suffering from a visitor hangover this morning. Lots of company, lots of seeing friends. And after this podcast, I'm heading back out the door to go and do a little promotion of my book and visit some classrooms and see some more friends. So
cool.
It's a whirlwind.
Yeah. So
visit.
how long are you there for?
10 days total. So
wow.
Yeah, enough time.
It's a nice long visit.
It is. Enough time that I want to go home and enough time that I, enjoy my stay. So it's a nice balance because when I come here, it's because this is home to me, this is where I'm from. So when I come here, I've got a list a mile long of things that I want to do and see and eat.
Right.
And so it's like a race to get all this off my checklist, plus do all the other, book stuff. So yeah, it's been lovely, but the weather's been absolutely perfect. It's never, ever like this in October. It's been warm and the sun has been shining every day, which is kind of a bummer because one of the reasons I chose to come at this time of year was for the rain.
Oh no. That's right. You packed your raincoat. You were very excited for that.
I had my boots. I got my raincoat. But they're saying that a storm is coming through tonight, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, we've had a lot of rain here in New Jersey. You could have come visited me.
I could have.
We had Sunday was the day our town was having a big parade and harvest festival, and it was beautiful on Saturday. It was beautiful on Monday, and on Sunday it rained, so I had to cancel everything.
Oh, wow.
So,
there's supposed to be a big storm coming through tomorrow, and there might even be a slight chance of snow. So, yeah. So, I'm excited about that. Of course, nobody else is, but...
Have somebody take a video of you running around in the snow with your arms outstretched.
Yeah.
Sound of Music style.
Exactly.
So I'm, loving it. It's just such a nice break and so refreshing. And I'm happy to be here. So.
And how many ketchup chips have you consumed since arriving?
Well, let's not talk about what I've consumed, but let's just say I've got a suitcase full of food going back home. I think I'm up to 6 bags of chips already, the big ones.
Well, those are nice and lightweight.
That's right.
Are. Well, it was funny because I knew that I would be bringing back a lot of goodies from home. So when I packed up to fly up here, I packed a great big suitcase, and then I had a carry-on which pretty much had nothing in it because its sole purpose was to return full of Canadian items. So some very nice gentleman was helping me pull my carry-on down from the overhead bin after we were, the plane had landed and we were getting off, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so light. There's nothing in here." And I said,
just wait.
It'll be very different on the return trip. So, Anyway, getting my fill of Vancouver and happy to be here and happy to be doing this podcast remotely.
Yay.
and talking with you both.
Our first international podcast.
Yeah.
Or by country.
That is correct. So, we should get started then and dive in and say hello to everybody and welcome to Parenting Roundabout, a weekly podcast about the things that parents are talking about, obsessing about, and complaining about right now. I am Nicole Eridix, and with me today are Catherine Haleko.
Hi.
And Terri Morrow.
Hello.
And today on the podcast, we are talking about goodbye rituals on our Friday speed round. Shout out some stuff we like on the Roundabout Roundup. But first, we're going to start off with some facts about lying, which sounds interesting because I haven't seen any of the articles related to this topic. So Catherine. Give us the goods.
Well informed.
Yeah. So, well, Terri had come across this article on time.com saying that the most common reactions that parents have when kids lie are explaining why it's wrong and punishing them. And this expert who wrote the article said, those don't work. I think the explaining why it's wrong, to say it's ineffective, I think is a little tricky, because one of the things that he says is effective is role modeling telling the truth. And he says that a little punishment is okay. Just don't go crazy.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those, I'm gonna give you the big, there's 3 ways to do this, and then kind of backpedal. But
it's one of those, I'm a parenting writer on a deadline. Let me see what I can put together.
Right. But, we did think that it was an interesting topic, because it's certainly something that every parent faces, I think, is, catching a kid in a lie or having to lie to your kid, because that happens frequently. Whether you're doing it sort of on purpose because you're trying to, keep something from them or affect their behavior in some way by telling a little fib. Or sometimes, parents lie to kids because they want them to believe in Santa or whatever it is. I mean, it's such a tricky area, I guess, is what I'm saying, when it comes to parenting. And Terri had a great piece about it that she has posted on her blog, specifically when it comes to kids with special needs, needs that impair their ability to interpret the world, as she says, and their executive function. So maybe, Terri, you could talk a little bit about this, because I think this is really interesting. And there's plenty of kids that struggle with executive function, right?
Absolutely. Executive function is a big thing right now. And you have to, I think, narrow it down to, is my child intentionally lying, with motive and purpose? That's a different thing. If you know that your kid understands that they are telling an untruth and is doing it for some gain, then talking to them, then explaining it to them, then punishing them, those things might help. But for a lot of kids, it's not that clear cut. I mean, I have a son with fetal alcohol syndrome, for which one of the main symptoms is crazy lying. They will stand in front of you and say with all sincerity and genuineness something that is clearly not true. Grass is blue. It's like it's objectively not true, and yet they're not connecting the wires up to know. And they lie for no reason. Like, why would you lie about the color of the grass? But, they've clearly been caught doing something, and then they will say they didn't do it in a way that, or oftentimes happens with my son, he lies and says he did something that he clearly didn't do. So it's really confusing for a parent then, and you sometimes, if you get into the punishment and you get into the explaining, and it doesn't work and it doesn't make a difference, and then things escalate and escalate and escalate. So it's good to just stop and say, what kind of lying is this? Is this deliberate lying with motive and purpose, or is it just that my kid has no real way to put together what the truth is and express it? And if that's the case, you have to work on it really differently. That's been my experience pretty much entirely. So I've gotten over being angry about that stuff, and I'm often very concerned because I have no way to really know if he's telling the truth or not. Yeah. When it's something that's happened when I'm not there, it's really difficult to know. So one of the strategies I always adapted was just, and this is, the basis of my helicopter parenting, which is, if I'm there and seeing everything that he does, then I know what the truth is. And if he tells me something different, I have a basis on which to say, well, let's talk about that. This is really what I saw happening. Now that he's older, I can't do that all the time. And so he comes home and tells me something. We've had an incident where, he bought something for his lunch at the stadium where he works. And I can access his bank account and I can see when he spends money on his card. So I'm going to find out. And he's like, no, I didn't buy anything. I said, I really think you did. I'm looking at your bank account here. No, I didn't buy anything. And it's fine that he buys something.
Right,
he's not
exactly.
in trouble for buying something. It's taking his brain a while to process that, oh yeah, I did. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. So it's really, really complicated. And with much younger children, I know parents sometimes get into this feeling that no child of mine's going to lie. And you got to stamp out lying right away. And then you get into a lot of trouble. So
yeah, I had written a piece last year about specifically preschoolers. So it really, should only apply to preschoolers. But it talked about how parents actually do have trouble interpreting when their child is lying. So that just adds another layer of complication. If the preschool teacher or the neighbor or whoever is saying, well, this is what he said. And you're like, well, no, he didn't say that. Right? I mean, it's just another whole, it just makes it more complicated to respond to. And that's another one where we've talked about this before. If your child is accused of some sort of misbehavior or lie and you're not there and you're finding out about it hours later. Oh, yeah. That's really hard to even talk to, even set aside discipline. It's hard to just even talk to your kid about it because they don't know. Yeah. They don't remember necessarily. So, yeah.
And a lot of times you want to stand up for your kid if somebody else says they've done something. Part of you is an advocate saying, wanting to defend your child, and then part of you is like, well, okay, did you do this? Right. If you did, I probably shouldn't be defending you against it. Right. But, we sometimes leap to assuming that other people are lying and not our precious child. Mm-hmm. And sometimes our child has lied, and sometimes it's not for a good reason, and it's not something that's easily punishable.
Right. And sometimes it's a misunderstanding where everybody
that's true also
has misunderstood. So I remember when my kids were in daycare, the preschool years, and you'd get the incident report, coming home, and whenever I'd see it like in the folder or the backpack, I really hope my kid was the victim. Like I'm really hoping my kid got bashed in the face today or whatever it was, because I don't want them to be the perpetrator. I want them to be the victim. Isn't that nice? Nicole, how does this play out in the classroom?
Oh gosh, the classroom. Yeah, that's a whole other world. You really I find in the classroom it's more of a formal process. And by doing it or by going through the process, because as parents we tend to react on the fly, right? And talk about it, discuss what had happened, and then it's kind of over, and the kid does most of the listening and ideally yeah, and then walks away from it, and you hope that they have processed something that you've said and are able to apply it to a future issue. But these days now, when you have, I guess, larger incidents which involve, he said, she said kind of stuff, generally, we'll have kids sit down and write out what had happened, the incident. And in that process of writing out what had happened or what the issue was, then kids have a chance to think about it a little bit more and maybe tone down what they were going to, the story that they were going to tell, if they were they're planning on elaborating a little bit more, they have an opportunity to tone it down. So I find that by just giving them some time away from the issue to really think about, okay, how am I going to say this? Because we often put kids on the spot and, and expect them to come up with a response. And for kids who can't process that fast enough, or it's difficult for them to respond in the best way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And stress usually makes it worse.
It does. And they get flustered.
Yeah, sometimes my son will just admit to something he didn't do just to get it over with.
Yeah.
Just because they know he knows that's what the person wants to hear, and it will make this questioning over, and whatever the punishment is going to be better than this ratcheting up of stress.
Exactly,
right.
and
it's difficult.
And very often as parents, we don't want to take the time to listen to what exactly happened because we're caught up in the moment as well, and it's kind of a no-win situation at that point. Because we're not exactly addressing it because we're, emotionally charged by that point, because generally whatever preceded or caused the lying was probably not the best behavior.
Right.
So we're anxious and upset, and then that translates into the child's reaction. So it's really not it's very often a no-win situation on the parent and the child's part. So so back to school, addressing it in more of a, okay, let's take a step back and let's, I really want you to tell me what happened and we'll figure this out. So that often helps, not, for the kids that can't write out all of their, obviously there's support for that for kids who are having trouble writing that down. But, but then, on the flip side, in my own life, because, things are always, do what I say, not what I do. When we had, I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast. One of the best pieces of parenting advice we ever received was when my child was younger, or my son was younger, particularly my son. He was younger. And somebody told us that during the teen years, assume that everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie.
Wow.
And if you start with that,
that's true.
You can only go up. So we actually, and not to be, kind of oppressive about it, but we actually circumvented a lot of potentially negative incidences by, with my son, especially when he was older and wanting to go out and, we'd ask, where are you going? And he'd tell us where he's going. And we're like, yeah, no, tell us the truth. We know you're lying.
So
Josh.
it's sort of like trust but verify, but skip the trust part. Just distrust but verify.
So it would be, we know you're lying. Give us the truth. It's so much easier just to tell us the truth. So it's not the most savvy parenting advice, and there really has no research base to it. It certainly worked with my son.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, another piece of advice I give, especially if your kid has special needs that impact on processing and also make stressful situations difficult, and also with much younger kids, is just take I don't know for an answer, even just for a short time. If you pressure your kid to answer and they don't know, then they're going to lie. It's like you're saying,
I really like that advice.
Lie to me. Mm-hmm. So, it's not that they never have to take responsibility for everything, but they don't, if they say, I don't know, give them a little time. Mm-hmm. Don't insist angrily at that moment that they must come up with some answer. Yeah. So sometimes just that little extra time will allow them to process it and figure out either a plausible lie or an answer that's correct. One hopes for the latter.
Right.
But I think that there's a philosophy of parenting. I think that kids generally want to please you. So, if you give them a little time, perhaps they will come to a point where they can tell you what the truth is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, but it's hard to do in the moment because we feel that so often we feel that things are black and white, that there's truth and a lie, and you know what the truth is because you were there. How could you not know what the truth is? Therefore, tell me. Yeah. But sometimes it takes time for the truth to work its way through the brain and out the mouth.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I don't know about you guys, but I've never been one to insist that we can't have fun things like Santa and the Tooth Fairy because it's lying.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
okay with it.
That's in a different category.
Yeah, I know it is a little bit uncomfortable in that you're teaching kids that there's sometimes it's okay to lie. But you know what? There's sometimes it's okay to lie. It's not a black and white thing.
It's really
don't want your
not.
kid
I mean,
going up to people and saying white lies, while ethically uncomfortable perhaps, are a necessity of social
function.
skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that movie with Jim Carrey where he couldn't lie? Like, it just proves how it just causes, like, mass chaos if you don't lie sometimes.
Yes. Sometimes you need to lie, and sometimes you just have to refrain from telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's difficult to teach without sounding like a complete hypocrite.
Right. Exactly.
So it's another reason to give your kid a little leeway. There's no way to teach this is a good time to lie and this is not a good time to lie unless they lie, and then you can tell them, well, this is one of those times when it would have been better.
Remember we talked about it.
That's right.
And I often think too, as the older they get, that we talk about personal safety, especially when they're going out with their friends, and a lot of I do a lot of preempting, such as, please tell us if you need a ride home. Tell us, don't feel like you need to lie to us about, what your activities were, just to, because you're worried you'll get in trouble and then you'll maybe make a bad decision and drive home and harm yourself or somebody else, heaven forbid.
Yeah.
So we often preempt occasions with, we're not going to get mad at you. We just want you to tell us the truth so we can help you get through it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we'd rather deal with that than, the other effects. So,
absolutely.
It's definitely it's almost like I don't know, there's all these different like flow charts to dealing with lying.
And then, on the same topic of kids going out and you not wanting them to put themselves into dangerous situations, that's when white lying comes in good. All right, if you're in a situation with your friends and you don't like, tell them that your mom said you had to be home at this time. Right. Or tell them that you have something that you need to do tomorrow. It's like, lie to your friends so that you get home safe and don't have social repercussions of it. Blame everything. I always tell my kids, blame everything on your mother.
Right.
Say your mother is making you do this.
Yeah.
So that's, that is in its way lying also. And not just saying, I don't like this, I don't like what you're doing, I want to leave, and then they get in trouble. So,
and then there's the flip side where my daughter had an incident a couple nights ago where she told her friends the truth about what she was doing, and the backlash was incredible. Really? Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Yeah, she wanted to be straight with them as to what the situation was about, and wow, did she ever suffer backlash from her peer group? And she's like, dang, I was trying to be straight up and truthful, and it didn't get me anywhere. Yeah. In fact, she was basically shunned for doing that. So, what has that taught her, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah. This truth thing, highly overrated.
Yeah. So, it's complicated.
Yeah, it really is. So as with all other parenting advice we give, it's basically, it's not a black and white situation. No. It depends on the kids. It depends on the situation. There's really no one way to do that. Just good luck. Yeah. Good luck to you. You have to, use your creativity and your instincts as a parent in dealing with this stuff. You know your kid and what your kid is capable of, and you should know their tales if they're not lying deliberately for their own gain, and go in for that. And if it's more complicated than that, then treat it like something more complicated and talk that through and try to figure out ways to deal with it, to role play or to discuss or to practice or find books that have some examples to help your kid. It's a complicated world,
Yeah.
And as much as we like to think that it's black and white, it's really not, and it's never been, and it's never gonna be. So, you got to roll with it, I think, a little more than most people would like to think. I think people think of lying as something that you must teach your child not to do, and that every time they do it, it must be addressed. But goodness knows we don't apply that to ourselves.
No.
So
we certainly do not.
Yes. Give your kid the same slack.
Yes, well, we will link to all of the articles that we've talked about here. Definitely recommend checking those out and taking from them what you will.
Exactly, yes. Take what you
want and leave the rest is always our motto.
Truth. That's the way to do it, yes. I have to put that into a logo.
Yes.
The Parenting Roundabout podcast. Take what you want, leave the rest.
Exactly. And speaking of leaving... Wah, wah.
Yes, speaking of leaving, we thought for our speed round today, we would talk about something that's always been a big deal in my household and in the household I grew up in, which is what is required of you before you leave the house by yourself or with not the entire family going. If you are leaving somebody behind in the home, what are your obligations to that individual? When I was growing up, and I may have told the story on the podcast before, my dad lost his father unexpectedly, and on the day that he left home for school or whatever that day, he did not say goodbye to his dad, and then his dad died. So for my dad, the law was you had to say goodbye before you left anybody in the home, and if you didn't, it was a big deal. So it was a ritual. Every time we left, goodbye, I love you, let me kiss you goodbye, even if you were just taking a walk around the block. So that I've carried that forward, and I feel that way too. I feel like every time somebody leaves my house, they better say goodbye to me. I would like a kiss on the cheek at least. I would like an acknowledgement of affection. These are the things I expect. My family, not so much. They all think it's stupid and ignore me when I require it. And yet, I will go out of the house in my bare feet onto the driveway to stick my head into a car and say, goodbye, say goodbye to me. Kiss me goodbye. I love you. Be safe. They think I'm a loon. But it's, those habits ingrained in childhood do not easily go away.
No, they don't.
And I've recently added to my routine that when anybody leaves the house and I am left remaining, I say a prayer for their safe return. So now that's gotten to be a routine. And if I don't do it, I feel very worried.
You just say it quietly to yourself?
Well, lately I kneel on the floor where I am and I say it.
But I mean, you don't say it to them.
I do not say it to them. When they leave, I hit my knees wherever I should be and say, Lord, please bring them back safely and keep me safe here while they're gone. So, can't hurt, right? Not bothering
anybody. Can't hurt to ask.
But so clearly I have a very formalized routine as to how departure from the house, which is not necessarily respected by others, but I impose it sternly. So I got to thinking, since my family thinks I'm being ridiculous, do either of you guys have a routine when to leave? Are people allowed to just leave willy-nilly without acknowledging your importance in their life? Catherine, what's it like at your house?
Yeah.
Do people come and go?
It's fairly willy-nilly, I gotta say. It's not,
wow.
There's not a ton of ritual. Usually the ritual is like, go, go, go.
Are you still
Get
here?
your shoes on, get going.
You're late.
Yeah.
Well, I do that too, and then I say, wait, no.
But goodbye, I love you. Yeah. My husband started saying, have a magical day, because they say that in Disney.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So he'll say that, but he likes to, especially if my son is in the car with him, if they go to a drive-thru, he'll say it to the drive-thru worker, which my son continues to find amusing. You would think that would, get old, but no, he enjoys it. So we say that. And I mean, yeah, I don't I want a goodbye. I don't want just people spiriting out the back door without saying anything. But we don't have a whole firm routine, I would say. The routine is like, last one out, make sure the dogs are in the crate.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, then you're gonna come back to something you don't want to see. So
It's an important element of an exit routine.
yes, but that's
when everybody's leaving.
everybody goes. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're all together. And you don't need to say goodbye.
Right.
To the dogs.
Say goodbye to the
Do
dogs.
the dogs like being said goodbye to?
I always say goodbye to them, and I tell them like who's gonna be back first and when. I'll be like, I'll be back in half an hour, or Josie will be home soon, or whatever. Whoever's coming, I give them the heads up, like as if they have any clue.
I'm sure they appreciate it.
Like you.
Mine's far worse, Catherine.
The dog. The goodbye routine to the dog.
Yeah.
Do you tell her to be good?
I can't believe I'm admitting this in public.
Nobody listens to our podcast. It's fine.
I have a little song that I sing.
That's adorable.
Now you must sing it to us.
I can't.
The dog will think you're going away and be very confused.
Yeah. But I have this little song that I sing.
Aww.
And then that's her cue to go into her room. And so as soon as I start singing my song, she goes into her room, and then I go and I get a treat and bring her the treat and give her a kiss goodbye and sing, and tell her that she's, a good girl and all that kind of stuff, and then shut the door.
That is good training. I wonder if that would work with children.
Yeah, it's quite funny because as soon as I start, back to the song thing, I always, even with my kids, I don't know, I just kind of have these little jingles that I make up. And so it's just kind of translated into the dog as well. She's become part of my, whether it's getting dressed or whatever kind of activities going on in the house. When they were little, I'd just sing a little jingle to get them moving along. And so now the dog is the recipient of my jingles. But I don't sing that to my kids because they would be mortified. Instead, I generally stand at the door and watch them. Well, of course, they give me a kiss goodbye. We always have a formal, say goodbye, because I don't like that idea of leaving and something maybe happening. Right. So I make them say goodbye, and so does my husband, and then I generally go to the front door and watch them leave, particularly now that they're driving.
Yeah. And that's when I started hitting my knees when they left, basically. Yeah.
So I watch them leave and wave, and they know that I'm watching them. And so, that's kind of our little goodbye routine. But when my husband used to travel a lot, and my kids were little and at home, we would all give a big family hug. And of course, my 2 dogs at the time had to be part of that. And they would end up somehow in the middle of this family hug.
Yes, our dogs do not like to be left out from hugs at all.
No. So anyway, things have kind of evolved. But
when we say prayers at night, we all go into my daughter's room and we all say prayers together. And the dog always comes in and joins our circle.
Yeah.
Aww. Yeah, so, can't be left out.
They don't like to be left out, do they? If there's a gathering of humans.
Yes,
they my humans. I need to be there.
Exactly. Yes. I must keep an eye on them. Who knows what they will get into?
Yeah.
Well, they're convening with their higher power. I need to.
That's true.
Be there.
Yes. You got to join the pack when that's going on.
Very sweet.
Well. Goodbye, and we love you. That is the end of our speed round. You can hear a new speed round every Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, and so now we want to bring you some of the things that we've read or seen or used or maybe even heard recently, like my goodbye jingle to my dog, that we want to shout out and share with you. Catherine, what have you got for us?
I just have Twitter thread that somebody linked to yesterday, and it is only of interest if you are a fan of Hamilton and you know the lyrics to the songs, but it's all these parents saying the lyrics that their kids think the Hamilton songs are.
I saw a little bit the
and
other
it started
day.
with a guy saying, my 5-year-old decided that the opening line is, how does a basket orange son of a horse, when it's really bastard orphan son of a whore. And so then all these people chimed in with like, you know, because there's a couple F-bombs in the show. And, like one kid said, I'm only 19, but my mom is older, where it's really, but my mind is older. My child, I think to this day, there's a line about there's so many ladies to deflower, but he thinks it's devour, which I'm not going to correct because I'm not interested in explaining what deflower means. And there's just like all these, like a couple dozen examples of like really funny things that kids have said about Hamilton lyrics. So Terri will enjoy it. Nicole, not so much, but anyone who's listening who's a Hamilton fan or who is familiar with the lyrics, check that out. The Twitter handle that I'm linking to is somebody who's an editor at Slate. I think it started with him, but or no, he replied to Lin-Manuel Miranda, who was laughing about the one about my mom is older. So anyway.
Yeah, I saw some of them go by on his Twitter feed. That was funny.
So I, did my once a month tweet to add my contribution to that. So there.
Thank you. How about you, Terri?
Yeah, I'll make a shout out to online dictionaries for making my life, both as a copy editor and as the parent of a kid who's still acquiring language well into her 20s, for just making it very easy to look stuff up. I edit manuscripts in U.S. style and Oxford style, so I have online the Merriam-Webster dictionary, which I actually paid to not have the commercials on it. It's very nice. And the Oxford dictionary. It's so great to be able to look stuff up. Every now and then I have a Canadian manuscript, and I have to use my Canadian dictionary, and it's not online. I have to page through this big book to find the way Canadians spell things. They're such a nuisance. And it makes me appreciate how easy it is to look things up online. And the other day, my daughter had heard something and she was mispronouncing it, and I said, no, it's this, and she says, that's not a word. And I said, it is so a word, and she says, no, it's not. So I went to my Merriam-Webster online, I looked it up, there it was with big letters, and you can hit the thing to show how it's pronounced, and it's just it's the way we live now, y'all. So
it's very satisfying.
It's very satisfying to show her a screen with the word real big and say, see, I use words for a living. It's a word.
My daughter
look it up too.
My daughter had, for her, she's a sophomore, and for her English class, she had to do this online test about run-on sentences. And she did it once by herself, and she scored poorly. So she said, can you look at this with me? And I went through it with her, and, I didn't tell her, I didn't give her answers, but when she said, I think this one, it was true or false, first of all, which doesn't even, and the sample sentences were so weird and terrible. And we had to go through it, and she would say, well, I think this one's false. And I would say, yeah, I guess I agree with you. They were so ambiguous, and they were just so poorly written. I'm like, well, if I were editing this, I would totally scrap it. I would rewrite it. But anyway, when I did it with her, she got one more answer correct than when she did it by herself. And I was like, I do this for a living. This is a mess. It's not your fault. So, but then she ended up doing it. Her teacher let her do it. The teacher helped her, and then she did got it right.
Wow.
But it's like, I
Possibly
do not
if
know what
it
she's
takes-
thinking.
Might want to volunteer with that teacher and say, you know what?
Can I write your sample sentences?
I got some juice in this area. Maybe you want me to write them for you.
Oh, man. It was...
Oh, so many times I wish to edit teachers' missives.
Yes.
Not you, Nicole. I'm sure yours are perfect.
No. Perfect.
But
every
you
time.
surely have seen your colleagues' work sometimes and thought, this is not professional.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen my work. And think, what am I doing?
There should be like a little red mark, on this class list. It's like if the child's mother works in publishing, maybe you want to give that note an extra
Review
read.
that email one more time.
Yeah.
A little questionnaire at the beginning of the year
exactly.
could save a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And what is your profession? No, those sound like good things to check out. And I just want to shout out a page on Instagram that I follow, and also because I'm here right now, and it's called Hello BC. So Hello B as in Bob, and
As
C
in British Columbia.
as in British Columbia. And when you follow it, you'll see all these gorgeous photos of British Columbia and all the, amazing things that are in and around this awesome province.
Very nice.
So I encourage you to check it out and see how the other half does.
Do they have links to like order, ketchup chips and stuff?
No, sadly no, but
Yeah,
they
they
should.
can monetize.
Good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To get that full experience.
Full
Well, you'll
Canadian
be
experience.
mailing us some, right? You're bringing some home for us, right?
No, nothing.
Nothing.
I'm sorry.
She's not even going to
No.
front.
Well.
She is not bringing them back.
Nope. I'm being straight up honest with you, and I'm not lying. You are not getting my ketchup chips.
We will have to make our own trip to Canada, Terry.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're on your own.
Well, on that note, I'm just going to wrap this thing up. You know what? We're done. That's it for this week's episode of Parenting Roundabout. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us every week. You can listen to podcast episodes on parentingroundabout.com or download them from Apple Podcasts, where it would be really super keen if you would leave us a good review so that other people would know to come listen to us, because we're a little lonely here. So spread the word. Please subscribe so you get all of our podcasts and mini podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter, where I am at Momitude, Nicole is at Nicole Eretix, and Catherine is at C. Haleko. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter at Roundabout Chat for a really nonstop stream of promotion for this podcast. So if you ever forget what the name is, or, what those quotes were that you liked in the podcast, they'll be right there at your fingertips. Look for us also on Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, YouTube, and Instagram too. Best of all, stop by our podcast page at parentingroundabout.com and read recaps, find links on all the stories we mentioned, and talk back in the comments. Thanks to John Moran at johnjmoran.com for providing our in and out music, and I wish everyone a great week.